In the Vatican, 2 ancient tombs were opened in the hope of finding the body of a girl who disappeared in 1983. But the result shocked everyone. Inside, there was absolutely nothing. Not even the remains of the 2 19th-century princesses who were supposed to rest there. The Orlandi family's phone rang. Maria rushed to answer it. Ever since Emanuela had disappeared, the phone had been ringing constantly.
We have your daughter. Don't believe it? Check the trash bins at the entrance to the Senate and in the chapel at Fiumicino Airport.
The man spoke Italian with a distinct American accent. That same day, July 5, 1983, the police checked the locations mentioned by the caller. Due to his accent, he was nicknamed the American. In the trash bin near the Parliament building, they found a copy of Emanuela's music school ID. She had been studying the flute, along with a note written in her name. Another copy of the ID was found in a wastebasket at the airport. Over the following days, the American made several more calls to the Orlandi family, including one where he played a recording of a girl's voice. This led investigators to suspect that the audio recording had been made before her disappearance. Many Vatican citizens, at the time only 444 people, were convinced that she had simply run away from home, a typical teenage scenario. And, indeed, the circumstances of her disappearance seemed to support this version. At 3 p.m. on June 22, 1983, 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi left her home and boarded a bus heading toward her music school. Half an hour earlier, she had asked her brother Pietro to give her a ride, but he declined, saying he was busy. After reaching Piazza Navona in central Rome, she walked in the direction of the school. She had plenty of time. Her class wasn't scheduled to start for another hour. However, the girl ended up being late for the lesson. At 6:30 p.m., she called her sister and explained that a man in a green BMW had approached her and offered her a job at a major cosmetics company, promising to pay $200, a huge amount of money in Italy at the time. The sisters agreed to meet in half an hour to discuss it. At 7 p.m., her sister arrived at the agreed-upon location, but Emanuela wasn't there. She didn't come home either. The next day, the police launched a search. A missing person notice was published in several local newspapers. A day later, a man called the Orlandi family, claiming to be a good friend of Emanuela's. He said he had met with her on July 24th and that she had asked for help in disappearing. According to him, she had changed her hairstyle and her name. The last thing he saw, he said, was her getting into a green BMW near the Senate building. The intelligence services immediately joined the search. After all, this was the first time in history that a citizen of the Vatican had gone missing without a trace. An intelligence agent began checking every green BMW in the massive city and discovered that such a car had recently been taken to a repair shop. The rear right window had been replaced. According to the mechanic, the glass had been shattered, possibly during a struggle inside the vehicle. However, this lead went nowhere. The garage didn't record the car's license plate number, and to make matters worse, the surveillance cameras in the square in front of the Senate had mysteriously stopped working, precisely from June 22nd to June 26th. 11 days after the girl's disappearance, on July 3rd, Pope John Paul II publicly declared that she had been kidnapped. I appeal to those responsible to return Emanuela without delay, said the pontiff. It seemed the Vatican knew more than the police. Later, Italian law enforcement would frequently complain that the Holy See was reluctant to cooperate with the investigation. And then, on July 5th, the Orlandi family received their first call from the so-called American. A day later, on July 6th, the call came directly to the Vatican.
We have Orlandi. We will release her only on one condition: free Mehmet Ali Agca.
The American said. Turkish citizen Mehmet Ali Agca was serving a life sentence in an Italian prison for the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II. In 1981, he had shot the pontiff on a street in Rome, wounding him in the abdomen. During interrogation, Agca was revealed to be a member of the ultra-right Turkish organization Bozkurtlar, Grey Wolves, which had attempted a coup in Turkey the year before. Aja himself claimed that the attack on the Pope had been orchestrated by the Bulgarian secret services, who were allegedly acting under the direction of the East German Stasi. His story was widely believed. It fit neatly into the theory that the Polish Pope had angered the KGB with his anti-communist rhetoric, and that they were determined to eliminate him. By the late 1990s, it would emerge that the Soviet leadership had indeed discussed taking measures to counter the direction of the new Pope's policies, though there was no direct evidence that assassination had been considered. When Aja learned about Orlandi's disappearance, which by then was all over the Italian media, he immediately declared that this, too, was the work of the KGB. Italian society descended into hysteria. People saw the Kremlin's hand everywhere, and there was no shortage of reasons beyond the abduction of a Vatican citizen. The country was in the grip of terrorist activity by the Red Brigades, who had effectively started a civil war. In 1978, they had assassinated former Prime Minister Aldo Moro, and for nearly a decade afterward, they kept the entire Italian peninsula in fear. Just as the theory that Orlandi had been kidnapped by Soviet agents began to take root in the public consciousness, anonymous men started calling the media, the police, the Vatican, and even Emanuela's acquaintances, demanding Aja's release.
We are the Turkish Anti-Christian Liberation Front. Free Aja, and we will free Orlandi.
Now speaking with a distinctly Middle Eastern accent. In addition to the phone calls, they also sent letters repeating the same demands. The American hadn't forgotten about the Orlandi family either. He claimed that the first caller, like himself, was a member of the Turkish front. He may have been bluffing. The investigation was being closely followed by the media, and new developments quickly became public knowledge, so the anonymous caller was naturally well informed. All of these conversations were secretly recorded by the Vatican during the 3 months following the disappearance. Eventually, the Holy See's Secretary of State, Agostino Casaroli, established direct contact with the American. The contents of their conversations remain strictly confidential to this day, despite numerous requests from the Orlandi family. One way or another, in September 1983, the unknown caller announced,
The operation concerning Vatican citizen Emanuela Orlandi is closed in all respects.
The American never called again. His identity remains unknown to this day. For nearly 15 years, the theory that Emanuela Orlandi had been kidnapped by Soviet agents remained the main line of investigation. However, in 1997, law enforcement acknowledged that there was no convincing evidence linking Aja to the intelligence services of former Eastern Bloc countries. A few years later, former officer of East Germany's State Security Service, Stasi, Günter Bonsack, claimed that the letters sent in the name of the Turkish Anti-Christian Liberation Front, demanding an exchange of Orlandi for Aja, had in fact been fabricated by the Stasi. According to him, East German intelligence aimed to redirect the Pope's attention toward Turkish radicals. In 2005, an anonymous caller phoned live into the popular Italian TV show about missing persons, Chi l'ha visto, regarding the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. Think about who was buried in the crypt of the Sant'Apollinare Basilica, the caller said. Buried there was Enrico de Pedis, known by his nickname Renatino, the boss of the Banda della Magliana, which ruled Rome's criminal underworld in the 1980s. In 1990, he was shot by a member of a rival gang. His burial on Vatican property was extremely unusual, something typically reserved for high-ranking clergy. Allegedly, it was granted in recognition of his special services to the papal court. Since the 1980s, there had been rumors in Rome that the Banda della Magliana stored money in Banco Ambrosiano, a bank led by Roberto Calvi, who had close ties to the Vatican and was nicknamed God's banker. With Calvi's help, the Vatican Bank, still one of the most secretive financial institutions in the world, became involved in various investment schemes, laundering money for its clients. To do this, Calvi created Banco Ambrosiano Holding, building a network of shell companies across the globe. The Vatican invested $1.3 billion into the venture. However, when the Bank of Italy discovered in 1978 that most of the firms in Banco Ambrosiano Holding were fake, the financial pyramid collapsed. Powerful depositors, many of them mafiosi, demanded their money back. The Holy See got off relatively lightly, repaying only $240 million. Roberto Calvi wasn't so lucky. On June 17, 1982, he was found hanged under Blackfriars Bridge in London. His killers had left a calling card. His pockets were stuffed with Italian lira. One member of the Banda della Magliana, Antonio Mancini, later claimed that the group had invested $24 million in Banco Ambrosiano. He said Orlandi was kidnapped by his associates. Renatino wanted to pressure the Vatican into returning their money. In 2008, the Italian media were contacted by Sabrina Minardi, Renatino's former lover. She claimed that Emanuela Orlandi had been held in the basement of his villa in the upscale Roman neighborhood of Monteverde. Police would later find a chain hanging from the ceiling there. According to Minardi, the girl was murdered in that very basement, and her body was buried in concrete in the suburbs of Rome. However, investigators questioned the credibility of these claims. First, no traces of the girl's DNA were found in the villa. Moreover, it was well known that Minardi had struggled with a severe drug addiction for many years. Investigators also determined that the body encased in concrete was not that of a girl, but a man, and that the burial had occurred in the mid-1990s. Minardi also accused Cardinal Paul Marcinkus, who died in 2006, of organizing the kidnapping. Marcinkus was the head of the Vatican Bank and a close friend of Roberto Calvi. But what motive would such a powerful clergyman have to kidnap a girl? One version was offered by the Vatican's chief exorcist, Father Gabriele Amort. This was a crime of a sexual nature. Back then, parties were held where a gendarme of the papal guard acted as a recruiter. He found girls. "I believe Emanuela became one of his victims," he told journalists in 2012. The Vatican officially denied this version, and it was soon forgotten. But who knows what might have happened if Amort had made that statement today, amid the wave of high-profile pedophilia scandals in the Roman Catholic Church. In late October 2018, a worker from a renovation crew called the Rome police to report that he had found human bones near the tomb of Renatino. At the scene, police discovered a skeleton that, by all initial indications, could have belonged to Emanuela. This sparked renewed hope that the mystery, often referred to in the media as the Vatican's darkest secret, was finally close to being solved. However, this was not the first time such hopes had surfaced. In 2001, near the Vatican Church of St. Gregory VII, a parish priest stumbled upon a bag containing a skull without a lower jaw. Many immediately speculated that it belonged to the missing girl, but forensic analysis did not confirm that. Likewise, the bones discovered in 2018 turned out, according to forensic experts, to belong to an ancient Roman. Meanwhile, during the investigation, Laura Sgro, the Orlandi family's lawyer, received several anonymous letters containing cryptic messages. The unknown sender claimed that the girl was buried in the Teutonic, German, cemetery within the Vatican. There is a marble statue of an angel above one of the graves. Its hand points to the ground. "Look where it's pointing," one letter said. Perhaps it was just a cruel prank, but the lawyer took the tip seriously. It led her to a tombstone dating back to 1857. Forensic experts later confirmed that the grave had indeed been opened once since then. Someone knew that the body of Emanuela Orlandi may have been hidden in the German cemetery. Flowers were regularly left on that tombstone for years, Sgro wrote in a letter to Pope Francis. Eventually, the Vatican gave permission to open the grave, though it did not specify when this would happen. The Orlandi family's lawyer insists that the Holy See is reluctant to share information about the case. As it stands, it is entirely possible that the fate of Emanuela Orlandi, who vanished 35 years ago, will remain a mystery forever. The tiny Teutonic cemetery, which is 1,200 years old, is the only cemetery located within Vatican territory. Situated behind St. Peter's Basilica, it serves as the final resting place for members of royal families, cardinals, and artists. There was hope that the remains of the girl who had gone missing 36 years earlier might be found in one of the two graves belonging to German princesses. But the moment the tombs were opened, what the observers saw shocked everyone. both graves were completely empty. The tombs of Princess Sophie von Hohenlohe died in 1836, and Charlotte Frederica of Mecklenburg died in 1840 had been opened, and they were completely empty. There were no bodies of the princesses nor any trace of the missing girl. Moreover, beneath one of the graves, instead of a burial niche, there was a hidden chamber, which clearly had been built relatively recently. I was prepared for anything, except empty tombs. Unbelievable, said Emanuela's brother in shock. But we will keep going, and I hope for honest cooperation from the Vatican. I won't stop until I find Emanuela. Experts who were present at the exhumation, including Loris Groh and Giorgio Portera, also expressed their bewilderment. We found no documentation of any transfer of the bodies or of a reconstruction that converted one of the tombs into a sealed chamber. There should be some kind of record or file. If there are no coffins, it's impossible to know whether something was moved, or what might have been in the princess's sarcophagi. Where are these sarcophagi now? From a bureaucratic standpoint, the next step is to verify what the Vatican knows. All these secrets, and the Vatican leadership's continued silence, offering only generic expressions of sympathy for the Orlandi family's suffering, are provoking righteous anger. Anyone who knows what happened and stays silent automatically becomes an accomplice, says Loris Groh. Now, it's time to give an answer not only to Emanuela's family, but to all Italians. All that remains is to hope that, one day, the truth will come to light. Now, the descendants of the two princesses are also involved. Their families have been informed of the findings.